You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Thank you so much for joining me today on this Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday, where I want to share with you right now the 7 contributing factors that create poor health. And these have been known for quite some time, but the interesting thing is that unless you're really working with an integrative medical doctor or an integrative naturopathic doctor or integrative health practitioner, that you probably haven't seen how they're really interrelated, meaning like an integrative doctor will take the best of conventional medicine, even if they don't practice using pharmaceuticals and those types of things. They'll still look at the blood work and they'll look at the disease pathology. And what that means is, how does a disease progress through the body? Meaning like, what are the initial stages? And then how does it actually lead to the end stage or whatever that disease may be? But here's the other thing, is that an integrative doctor will also say, okay, that's one form of medicine. Let me look over here. Let me see what the homeopathic-based practitioners would say. Let me see what Ayurvedic medicine would say. What about traditional Chinese medicine? And by really looking at all of the different modalities, you can honestly dissect whatever it is that's creating that poor health or that weight gain or the moodiness or the poor sleep, whatever it might be, and understand that there's a pathology to this. So that's what I want to go through today, is that there are underlying reasons, and we've spoken about that before, of course, but there's underlying root causes and reasons that lead to these poor health states. Many of them are autoimmune disease based or they're weight gain based, meaning like it's very difficult to lose the weight. And what I want to do is I want to share with you how all of these poor health will lump poor aging with that as well. Meaning like if you feel like you're aging faster than you should be, there's a lot more fatigue or you have this cold body temperature, what all of those things could be. And so what I've done is I've really narrowed it down today to the 7 contributing factors that lead to poor health overall. And hopefully you can catch them soon enough before they lead to a progressive disease state. But remember, have no fear that even if you have the MS, the rheumatoid arthritis, the type 2 diabetes, the Crohn's, the colitis, the IBS, whatever it might be, that those things can be reversed. They can. It's because here's why. There's at least one other person in the world who's done it, which means if there's one other person, that means the human body can do it. And if the human body can do it and you are human, that means you too could potentially reverse whatever disease is that you have of the body. The truth is this, is that when you figure out what that contributing factor is, or when you figure out what the underlying root cause is, you're no longer stuck with having to work on this disease in the first place. So meaning like pick your disease and say that it can't be overcome. So for example, one of the things that I had is Addison's disease. That's not supposed to be overcome. You're supposed to be medicated for the rest of your life with that. Or again, myalgic encephalomyelitis, ME, right? So I had CFS and I had ME. And those things people are just like, oh, well, you just have to learn to live with it. Well, that is not the bright picture that you want to paint for yourself for your future. That is not it. So where they, again, have the MS, the rheumatoid arthritis, the sarcoidosis, whatever it might be, you name it, you name that disease for yourself. Let's talk about what contributes to that and then forget about working on the disease itself. Work on the underlying root causes that allow that disease to manifest first in your body. Because as I've said before, a healthy body cannot be sick. A healthy body can't be overweight. So again, if you're struggling with weight loss issues, don't listen to all the people saying like, oh, well, you need to eat less and exercise more. Sure, you could eat less and you could exercise more. But the truth is, how little can you eat, right? And how much can you exercise? If you're doing, let's just say you're doing 40 minutes of exercise a day or an hour of exercise a day, that's it. You're not going to do 2 hours a day of exercise. But if you're doing an hour a day, then good. You put in your exercise time. You can say, you know what? I've done my exercise. I'm exercising for an hour a day. That's all I can do. And I would agree with you. That's all that you need to do. That's the maximum. Okay. And then what about eating? Okay, you're struggling to lose weight, but you're already just down to like 1,400 calories a day. Well, how few calories are you going to eat, right? So if you're focused on whole foods, healthy food, you're doing all your greens and your produce and all those things, well, there has to be another answer. And there always is. There always is. There's an underlying root cause to your weight gain, just like there's an underlying root cause to your wellness-based issues. So here's what I want to do. I want to dive right into it today. And I want to get really into these 7 factors because, again, in my practice, what I do, and again, it's not just my practice. So I say my practice because obviously I'm most familiar with it. But when you work with an integrative doctor or health practitioner, what they're going to do is they're going to kind of ask your story. They're going to see what in your past may have led to where you are today. And they're going to walk back down that road. And some of the questions they might ask you might not make any sense. Like they'll ask you about your bowel movements and, so like, oh, is this person constipated or loose stool? And like those things actually matter. So you want to give as much information as you can to your practitioner. You really want to give them details that you might not even think they're important. Like, for example, on a lot of the cases that I've worked on in particular, I keep saying like, what else? What else? I always say that, like, what else is there? Okay, what else? And I'm looking for that thing that they feel like they've told me everything. I'm like, okay, there has to be one more thing. Because it's that one more thing that they don't think is important that when they share that with me, like, oh, that's it. I'm like, that's it. That makes sense. And so they'll give me that one last symptom, that one thing that happened. So that's what I encourage you to kind of dig out of yourself to really draw up. And then, of course, you can share that with your practitioner or even if you're just running a lab online is like, you're going to put that down as part of one of your symptoms, okay? And that's why the symptoms questionnaire is so important as well. All right, let's get into that first contributing factor because I'm going to be obviously jumping back and forth as usual like I do in the podcast. And the first one is this. The first contributing factor are viruses that you've had in the past or you currently have today. Why are these so important in terms of poor health? Let's do this. Instead of me going back to saying anti-aging and weight gain, all that, let's just call it poor health. That can be autoimmune. That can be a lot of different things, all right? So the 7 contributing factors, the first one being viruses. I did an entire show on this. I invite you to go back and listen to that episode. It was number 760. So go to StephenCabral.com/760. Today's episode, let's see what today is. Today is episode 775. Okay, StephenCabral.com/775. That is where all the show notes from today will be. Please do check out that page because that's where I will have all of the links to everything that I speak about today. Okay, even episode 760 to check out all my recommendations on how to destroy viruses from your body. And again, just a quick summary. In order for you to like really eradicate viruses from your body or at least push them down dormant, you need to first, 1, boost the immune system. 2, stop the replication process. Then once you've stopped the replication process, there's less of those viruses replicating. And then you're going to destroy the virus or push it down. And then you're going to start to rebuild from the damage of the virus itself. So that's how I got over Epstein-Barr virus and a few other things that I had obviously wrong with my body as well. That was the process. And now, does it take a couple weeks? Sure. It takes a couple weeks, but you've probably been sick for a couple months or a couple years. And that's what you're going to work on. And so what we need to do then is, let me give you the reason why it creates poor health. I got a little ahead of myself, is that when you have a virus, like let's just say it is Epstein-Barr virus, right? But it could be any of the herpes-based viruses as well, or CMV. It could be anything, right? What it does is this. That virus wears on your immune system every minute of every hour of every day. And every day that passes, it wears your immune system down that much more. And your immune system takes energy. It takes a lot of energy. So when your immune system knows that this virus should not be inside your body and it's always fighting it, that exhausts you. It's one of the reasons that leads to chronic fatigue. It's just one, but it also leads to autoimmune-based issues, namely Epstein-Barr virus or any one of the herpes-based viruses as well. They can lead to multiple sclerosis. They can lead to rheumatoid arthritis. They can lead to sarcoidosis. There's quite a few, of course. Now, other things that happen with a virus is that it weakens your mitochondria. Now, your mitochondria need energy as well, but oftentimes the viruses can actually infect the mitochondria themselves. That can affect now your energy levels and your ability to produce ATP for energy, okay? Short-term energy in bursts and longer-term fuel-based energy as well. And another one is that viruses and even parasites, but viruses we'll talk about right now, can really disrupt your sleep. Okay, they can throw off the sleep cycle and they become more active at night, especially parasite-based. So it's something very interesting to look at. And that is one that I want to make sure that you fully explored. And if you found out that you had a virus, well, go to episode 760. I tell you exactly how I help people in my practice. I just gave you step-by-step how I help people in my practice to eradicate viruses from their body and take back control, essentially, of their immune system and their energy, their mitochondria. All right, the second contributing factor to poor health is hidden genetic abnormalities, okay, as well as the immunopathology that's affected by our genetics. Okay, so you've heard me say before that genetics only really matters. It only matters once you've already corrected everything else, meaning that by the time people are done rebalancing their body, genetics, honestly, like they matter. You need to know them. But there's so much more to do before you start like trying to manipulate MTHFR-based gene mutations and COMT. There's so much more to do that's not my first place of focus, okay? I think you've heard this before from me, but if someone comes into my practice and they're more than 20 pounds overweight, we lose the weight first. Bottom line, lose the weight first. As we're doing that, inflammation goes way down. Blood sugar levels start to re-regulate. Hormones start to re-regulate. A lot of times, oftentimes, they're better. And that's why we just recommend the 21-day Dr. Cabral detox, because that can help you lose 10 to 15 plus pounds easily if that's your goal. Again, you can do it for wellness reasons, and that's the majority of people do it for, but you can also do it to lose weight as well. Okay, next thing in my practice, once you've lost the weight you've got within 20 pounds of your goal weight, if there's still wellness-based issues, okay, we'll work on the wellness-based issues. And then once you're well, okay, now we move on to optimizing your body, making sure that you live a nice, long, healthy life with a good quality of life, not, being decrepit into your older years. So when I look at genetics, though, I do understand this is very, very important. Some people are more prone to higher cortisol, such as myself. I'm more higher prone to production of ACTH, body's kind of signaling of cortisol production pathway and norepinephrine like adrenaline, and it's harder for me to shut it off. So what have I done? Well, I've worked on both the mental aspect of that as well as the physical. I've talked about on last Friday review. What did I talk about? I talked about a super nutrient such as ashwagandha, right? That nutrient, that herb, allowed me to actually help to calm that HPA axis. And that was extremely important for myself and my healing process as well. So you can see that all of these things are beginning to become a little bit more interconnected. But the other thing that I really like on the genetic test that we use is that it shows you what your ApoE B genotype is. That means it's a specific blood type. It's not like the blood type diet. That's different. That's A, B, AB, and O is a blood type. Okay, we're not talking about that now. We're talking about a specific protein, an allele that allows people to either eat a little bit more fat on their diet or a little bit less. And it also says, is that person going to react really negatively to alcohol? Like there's a lot of people or doctors, again, misinformed, of course, but saying that, well, a couple glasses of wine or a couple glasses of alcohol will actually help with cholesterol. Well, believe it or not, there's a percentage of the population, they make up about somewhere around 24% of the population, where if you were to give them alcohol, it actually increases their bad cholesterol and decreases their good cholesterol. And it's an allele with a 4 at the end of it. So very important to look at that. Those people also don't do well on keto-based diets. They do really, really poorly. It increases inflammation in them. And again, their LDL levels sometimes skyrocket because they can't handle the saturated fats. And again, this is not me being one side or the other. This is me just speaking the truth, okay? When some people can't clear cholesterol as well from their bloodstream, they're going to be in a lot worse off shape. So really important reasons to know your genetics, and that does really matter in the long run. Meaning like that final thing I told you before, when I met my final mentor, Dr. Pete, she combined naturopathic medicine with subspecialty in functional medicine with Ayurvedic medicine, right? So what she looked at with the functional medicine was the genetics. She said, here's what you most likely have. See if you can get this test run. This is many, many years ago, many moons ago. And so I ended up at least having one of those runs. She's like, I suspected that because both your parents have autoimmune-based issues and all 4 of your grandparents have an autoimmune problem. So here's what I think is wrong. She knew ahead of time, but she likes a lab test. I kind of do the same exact thing, meaning like she taught me, I try to pass that on as well. And so that's how I look at it. Now, I know that I just have to make sure. That's why I formulated my own all-in-one shake, the Daily Nutritional Support Shake, to have all methylated vitamins, right? So now I get my methylated B6 in there. I get my methylated B12. So I get all of those in there, and that allows me just to have that all-in-one, and I'm good to go. If I ever see a need, times of higher stress, I take one additional active B complex. That active B complex gives me more of those B vitamin methyl donors. And I also do the Dr. Cabral detox. I do that seasonally 4 times a year. And that allows me as well any liver-based phase 1, phase 2 genetic abnormalities that I may have that are a little bit less efficient than they could be. Well, the detox helps with that. So anyway, these are all things that I just do in my life that I like to pass on with you as well. All right. The third contributing factor to, I would say most diseases really, we know it's at least 90%, could be more, is a weak digestive system and gut-based issues or GI issues. Okay. What could those be? Well, they could literally be anything. I mean, it could be, let's go all the way from basically starting the esophagus. It could be acid reflux or GERD or Barrett's esophageal-based issues. It could be a hiatal hernia. It could be H. pylori in the stomach or just a very slow emptying of the stomach through that gastric valve. It could be weak hydrochloric acid-based production in the stomach. It could be poor bile-based production because of blocked bile ducts or a lack of HCl in the stomach, which is not then allowing you to produce more bile. It could be a weak pancreatic enzyme-based distribution in the small intestine. It could be imbalanced microflora in your intestines, meaning like the good bacteria versus the bad bacteria. It could be candida overgrowth. It could be constipation. Maybe it's loose stool. Anything that affects the GI tract. I know I named a bunch there, but I'm sure I just missed a couple. So any one of those things that we knew way back in Ayurvedic medicine, thousands and thousands of years ago. They said this, that poor digested food, okay, or food that is not compatible with your body leads to ama. And ama means toxins, and that toxins is what's the root of all disease. Now, it's not the only one. I would say stress, which can then cause a weakened digestive system, then can cause ama, right? So I'd say it's the two combined. Really, it's that weak digestive system and stress. If I had to pick two, that's where I'd always be looking at first. Now, there's many more, right? But those what I would always look at first. So for the weak digestive system, we run an organic acids test. So we look for candida overgrowth and bacterial overgrowth in the gut. Some people call it SIBO. We also will run a stool test for H. pylori. For parasites, we'll run it for E. coli overgrowth, Klebsiella overgrowth, Clostridium, all sorts of different bacteria that can grow inside the gut, right? So every lab test has, or every compartment of the body, as I said before, has its own best lab test. Hopefully you checked out episode 774, which was just yesterday, on why running your blood work isn't enough. And that's because there's so many things that don't get caught on blood work. It's very important to run your blood work, but so many things don't get caught on it, okay? So we run that. And we'll also run a food sensitivity test. Now, you don't have to run all of them, but what if you think you have food sensitivities? Well, you'd run a food sensitivity test. What if you get bloating and gas and, a lot of other things in the intestines, like right around the belly button or a little lower? You'd run an organic acids test. What if your stomach always feels bloated right away after eating? What if you feel bloated upon waking? Good thing to run a stool test right there. You might have H. pylori. So it allows us to look at these issues because remember, if you're not digesting food, you can eat the best food in the world. You really can. But it doesn't matter because your body is not able to extract all the minerals like calcium and magnesium and zinc and all the others that your body needs, right? And it's not able to then manufacture the B vitamins in your intestines or the serotonin, which you need for good mood. That's actually made in your gut. 90% of it's made in your gut. So really, really important. And again, like you could think even the ones that are made in your brain, or I should say, are further processed in the brain, such as dopamine, it still comes from food-based metabolites. Like there's still a conversion that your body needs to increase that dopamine itself. Just again, for neurotransmitters, the vitamin B6 is needed. So really important to look at these things, how digestion is what gives you the raw material. So you really have to make sure your digestive system is functioning on all cylinders. All right, the next one's really easy, but it's so surprising at how it's overlooked. You should be running your vitamin D twice a year. You really need to run it twice a year, minimum. And the reason is that low vitamin D can contribute to almost any disease as well as weight gain. This is proven over and over. Why? Because vitamin D is what allows you to boost the immune system. It's just one factor, but it's a crucial factor. So if we don't have enough vitamin D, then our immune system can become dysfunctional, right? It means firing too hard on one side, too weak on another, or it can just be underactive. You're not able to fight off the viruses, the bacteria, the et cetera, right? Anything that your body can become in contact with. And you can run this on our thyroid hormone adrenal test that comes with vitamin D already included, or you can run a simple vitamin D3 test on its own. Or if you're at your PCP for your next visit, ask them, just say, hey, I'd like to run it's called 25-hydroxy vitamin D. I'd like to run my vitamin D test. And you can just let them know that, and then hopefully they will add it on for you. All right. Number 5, the fifth contributing factor leading to poor health in general is high levels of stress. I can't stress that enough. High levels of stress, ongoing stress, and tested by having high levels of cortisol. So if your cortisol levels are up, why would that contribute to poor health? Why would it contribute to weight gain? Well, a couple of reasons why. This is a simplification, but it's the most important way to look at it. When cortisol levels are up, immunity is down. When cortisol levels are up, great, anti-inflammatory is up for a while, and then it crashes back down. When high cortisol is up, you're not sleeping as well, which means your body's not rejuvenating. If cortisol is up, well, that can mean that your body is actually bringing more sugar into the bloodstream, and that can also then lead to excess body fat, especially around the belly, all right, the waist. Important to look at that. Okay. Besides the high cortisol, the high stress, I also look for, over time, low DHEA and low thyroid. If I see high cortisol and I see low DHEA and low thyroid, then I know that the body is already coming back down the mountain, that it's losing its overall fight with stress, because I know that DHEA is the balancer to cortisol, okay? So dihydroepiandrosterone, that's what DHEA stands for. Well, that's the balancer to cortisol. You need both, okay? If both are high, well, I just know that person's in an acute base phase. Body's pretty healthy, but they're dealing with a lot of stress at the time. Well, when DHEA goes down, now I know the immune system's not going to be able to keep up. It's just not. DHEA is a very potent immune booster, very, very important. And low thyroid, DHEA does many other things, but low thyroid also is needed for regulation, the thermostat of the body. Our metabolism starts to go down. Body temperature typically goes down. Hair begins to get thinner. All of these things happen as thyroid begins to decrease, because another word we can look at for thyroid is metabolism. So metabolic rate, don't think just about weight gain, but think about overall fluidity of the body, speed of the body, transactions of the body is also regulated in part by the thyroid, the hypothalamus for sure, and then also the thyroid as well. Really, really important to look at. So you can test that by using a thyroid adrenal hormone test. Again, I will link everything up in the show notes. You don't have to run them if you don't want to, but it's very important that you have the education, that you understand that all of these things, when dysfunctional, lead to disease. And I'm going to pull that together for you at the end. But the sixth contributing factor is poor sleep, okay? A lot of people will do everything else right, but they miss out on sleep because they're like, there's not enough hours in the day. I have to do this, this, and this. Sure. Every once in a while, I understand that. We all do that, right? Especially busy at work. Maybe you've got kids and they're up all hours of the night, whatever it might be, right? A lot of things going on, travel. But here's the thing. If you neglect sleep for long enough, it's going to not allow you to rejuvenate the body, which means you're not going to be able to rejuvenate the immune system. You're not going to be able to properly clear out toxins from the body. You're not going to be able to kill cancer cells. You're going to have cortisol elevated at night when cortisol should be low and melatonin should be high. When you start to literally neglect the overall processes of nature, the natural circadian rhythm, bad things happen. Nothing good happens from staying up late, okay? When you're staying up late, and even if you're sleeping in later the next day, that's throwing off that circadian rhythm. You are meant to be sleeping when it's dark and waking up when it's light. There's no debate over that. People can try to debate it, but you will lose every single time because of a simple story I've shared many, many times before. If you were to put humans back into the wilderness, we are part of the wild, or at least we used to be, right? We are an animal, we are a creature, we're a mammal, right? So one of those things that's very, very important to look at. You put us back in nature, we are not nocturnal, okay? No electricity, put us back in nature. We'll be falling asleep shortly after the sun goes down, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, maybe 10 at the latest at night. And we're waking up with the sunrise, 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the winter, whenever it might be, which is why our sleep can change a little bit from season to season. That's normal. What's not normal is staying up till 1 p.m., 1 a.m., calling yourself a night owl, and then waking up at 11. You can do it, but it's not human. It's not natural, okay? So again, I was there myself, and it takes one to know one. That's why I'm not coming down on anyone, but I'm saying if you want to be healthier, you will start to go to bed, but definitely before midnight, okay? Ideally closer to 10 p.m. All right, very, very important. We have 2 tests for that. We have an adrenal hormone test, which looks at your cortisol levels in the evening, or we actually have a sleep and stress lab that is absolutely fantastic as well. Check that out. I'll link it up today in the show notes. Just go to stephencabral.com/775. Okay, and the last contributing factor is toxic overload. I'm going to be talking about this so much more. But there's this thing, I don't want to get too deep into it today because I want to save this for its own episode. I really do. But what happens is we all have our own level that we can reach in terms of toxicity. It's a lot of times where we see a lot more childhood-based diseases, childhood obesity and we actually have autoimmune-based diseases now for children. It's so terrible. We have type 2 diabetes in children. Did you know type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes? Adult onset diabetes. But now we have children with adult onset diabetes and we have to call it type 2 diabetes. And now we're even coming out with a type 3 diabetes. So here's the deal. All of us have an upper limit to what we can handle in terms of toxicity. And it could be light at night. It can be EMFs. It can be environmental pollutants. It can be pesticides on our fruits and veggies. It can be grains-fed meat. It can be any of these things, all right? But when we reach our upper limit with toxins, it starts to block our liver's ability to do its job of removing toxicity. When that happens, it doesn't have a lot of choices, okay? The immune system's not going to function properly. It's going to start to create mutant-based cells, which could lead to cancer. It's going to store a lot of these toxins and plastics inside of our body, inside of fat cells. That's called adipose tissue. When this adipose tissue begins to swell, we actually gain fat. We look fatter. The body looks more soft and swollen and puffy. These are all factors having to do with toxicity, okay? And these are actually measurable things. I'm going to be giving a lot more of this data as well, but there is no human right now walking around, and I can assure you that does not have a level of environmental-based toxins inside their body. And the reason I know that is because the Environmental Working Group did a study on fetuses, okay? And now this is actually fetal cord blood and the fetus inside the mother. These no harm, I just want to say this, no harm coming to the children, but they're looking at toxins. So what they wanted to find was toxins before the child even was born. Okay, here's what they found. An average of 272 toxins. And they only tested for just over 400. Can you imagine if they tested for all 77,000 that we know of? I mean, how many would be in there? This is honestly a crime against humanity. I honestly feel that way. This is so disturbing that we can be walking around as humans just breathing in the smog in the air, aluminum in our water. I mean, all of these things that contribute to poor health. And yes, it's just one of the 7 that I named, but it does matter because what it does is it begins to add more total body burden, right? And as our body's more burdened, has more to deal with, and our immune system has more to have to try to work out, right? Because your immune system may be talking about these other environmental toxins leading to asthma and allergies. Remember, allergies and asthma, they're inflammatory-based issues as well. Well, the inflammation still has to come from somewhere, whether it's leaky gut or it's adrenal-based stress, like any of these things, there's always that underlying root cause. So when you tell me, someone comes into my practice and say, oh, well, it's just genetic, everyone in my family had migraines, or everyone in my family had this arrhythmia, or everyone in my family had MS, or everyone got rheumatoid arthritis. I'm like, I totally understand. I get it. I understand that. All 4 of my grandparents had rheumatoid arthritis. Both of my parents had rheumatoid arthritis. I had mine when I was 17, 18 years old. I don't have it anymore. My parents have put theirs into remission. Like, all of these things are possible for you. And the reason they're possible for you is at no point do you ever want to treat the disease? Because the disease itself is a fancy name that we give people to make them feel like we figured out what they have, so that we then give them a medication that they'll take for the rest of their life. And when that doesn't work, we'll give them a stronger version of it. And when that doesn't work, we'll add another stack on top of it. And when that doesn't work, then we're going to have to perform surgery. That's the current road most people are on. And I want to get you off that path because there's another path. There is another path. And that other path is forget about the name of the disease that you have. You're not the name of your disease. Figure out by running lab tests with a local practitioner in your area that's very suited to do this type of work, or an online lab test with us, or some other way. Like, maybe you can't run a lab test. And I understand that as well. And I totally get that. I'm understanding of that. But then assume that you may have that and begin to work on your gut. Or assume you might have the high cortisol at night and begin to work on your sleep, right? But all I want you to do is this. I want you to do something, right? I either want you to change the nutrition, change the sleep, fix the gut issues, start taking at least digestive enzymes with the meal. Do something that says to yourself, good, I'm moving forward. I'm taking a step forward in my life because if I know that I do this, more good things will follow. And that's it. Again, no one has to lose all the weight tomorrow or heal the disease tomorrow, okay? I actually wouldn't even recommend that. Here's why. I want you to go through the process. And the reason I want you to go through the process is that if you figure it out by going through the process, it will never come back. That's why I don't worry. People ask me like, are you worried that this is going to come back? No, not at all. And the reason is that I went through the process. I struggled through the process. But by going through that, I figured out what it was. And now I know what I'm susceptible to. I stay away from it. If I feel the first signs of it ever coming back, right away I pull back. Okay, you're being too lenient with your nutrition. You're staying up too late at night. You have way too much stress in your life. You're exercising too hard. You're whatever it might be, right? And you're going to be able to figure that out. And that's what I want for you. So thank you so much for tuning in today's episode. I hope it was helpful. I really do. I never know if it is, but I hope that it was. Please go to stevencabral.com/775 if you're interested in just finding out more details about all of these things. You're welcome to do that. Whatever works for you. And if this show was helpful, please do feel free to share it with someone else that it may benefit. Before you go, I wanted to ask you this question. What if I could teach you in just a couple of hours how to transform your thyroid, hormones, adrenal, cholesterol, blood pressure, blood sugar, weight loss, energy, mood, brain, pregnancy, anti-aging, or many other health-related issues? After 20 years in private practice, after seeing and overseeing 250,000 client appointments, I sincerely feel I have the real-world data and have found the answer you've been searching for. So what I've done is spent hundreds of hours of my own time refining what you need to know in order to uncover your underlying root cause health issues and then begin to rebalance the body and bring it back to a state of robust health and wellness. I'm going to teach you exactly what I do in my private practice so you can understand how you got here and now what you need to do in order to heal. You'll receive all of the important success checklists, protocols, and even ways to customize it to make the program fit your busy life. And you'll get all of this at a fraction of the price. Let me save you the time, money, energy, stress, and frustration of not knowing what to do next. Instead of reading dozens of books on the topic and seeing multiple practitioners, I will condense everything that you need to know in just a few hours of video tutorials that you can watch and listen to anywhere. Together, we will make this healing process an enjoyable one that you can take with you for the rest of your life. I wish you all of the best of health and happiness, and I hope to be able to guide you on your healing journey through my Health Results Accelerators. Simply choose the health imbalance you're currently suffering from, and by the end of today, you'll know what went wrong and how to get well again. I guarantee it. For details, head over now to stevencabral.com/courses.